You can't kill Tyler Rake. He's got more people to extract. This is Extraction 2, a sequel to a movie that Alonzo and I totally forgot existed and that we had reviewed right here on this very YouTube channel.
I had to go back and watch our clip to even remember what the hell this was. It was like
oh, yeah. Well, you know what? It came out like early COVID, and that time was kind of a blur.
Absolutely.
So anyway, we are reviewing Extraction 2. There was a clamor, a literal clamor, and we are here for you, our audience. So thank you for asking us to review Extraction 2. If you've not subscribed, here's why you should. We actually listen to our viewers. You want us to review a dumb Netflix movie, we're going to review.
Nag us into watching garbage like this. No, okay, garbage is a strong word. You good?
Why did you come back for them? Do you know her? Tyler?
Tyler Rake is back. He got shot to shit in the first movie, but yes, he is such a badass that he can wake up in the hospital still intubated and not gag. So like that's already pretty impressive. As always in these movies, when the super soldier gets terribly wounded, there's always a beautiful cabin by a lake for him to recuperate at.
In Austria.
Yes, in Austria in this case. And then one day Idris Elba shows up and says, "Have I got a gig for you? Your former wife's sister is stuck in a Georgian prison with her kids because she's married to a warlord, and go get her and bring her to the place and do the thing." And he goes and gets her and takes her to the place and does the thing. This is once again directed by Sam Hargrave, who is a stunt coordinator turned director. And so are there some really impressive action sequences in this movie? Yes, there are. Is there a looks like it was all in one take, although no way was it really in the middle of the movie? Yes, there is. Did there need to be? Not really. But within that long ass take, there are some, again, discrete moments of like, ooh, really cool action stuff. Again, the writing here is just not, I mean, and look, I know this sounds persnickety, but like you can have it all. You can have great action sequences and characters that you give a shit about. And this movie picks a lane and just stays in that one. And it started to make me think about this whole thing about like John Wick is the first three are great. Atomic Blonde, really good. But this whole thing of like, let's have the stunt guy direct the movie is starting to feel like, let's have the eclair guy make the entire meal. He can't make salads and he doesn't know anything about meat or vegetables, but the eclairs are so great. But then after about 4 eclairs, you're like, could I have anything else? And so, yes, the action is, very often in this film. But then, like, there's nothing holding this together as far as any kind of emotional connection. You get, they do throw in some backstory and things, but like, it feels so like, I guess we have to have somebody saying words in between shit blowing up and people, punching the crap out of each other. There were parts of this movie where I really sort of was like alert and like, oh, that's so cool. And then I was like, okay, now we're back to this story that I don't care about because I don't care about any of these characters. So it's better than the first Extraction in that regard, but it's kind of more of the same of the first Extraction.
Yeah, the titular Extraction is like a half-hour long eclair.
Yeah,
right.
The biggest eclair you ever saw.
It's actually pieces of various eclairs stitched together,
yes,
but it looks
seamlessly.
like one giant eclair. Yeah, there is stuff that takes place in the whole big extraction sequence where I'm with you, where I'm like, oh my God, how did they do that? There's one shot in particular during the car chase section of the extraction where the camera's inside the car and then comes through a bullet hole and then like back outside the car and around the car again. I'm like, oh, that was cool. There's some good stuff here.
the one moment where he actually gets hit in the head during the prison break, that really worked for me because it was like not only a moment where Tyler Rake is actually like somewhat vulnerable, given that he's been like hopping back into this after being like totally injured. It's one of those where he just decides to take the sling off his arm, but there's this moment there where like you hear like you get his sense of hearing where everything is kind of ringing and like there's a bit of a like what the fuck, but he's still like taking people out. That part really I thought was great.
Yeah, there's like a sound design thing that puts us in his head, and there's also, I don't know how they create the sensation of like a body mounted camera on him at that moment
like
too,
this
and like
weird
it falls,
GoPro thing happening.
it falls with him.
Yeah.
Like, when did they put that on him? So there are so many like when, how did they do that moments that I was wowed by constantly. And that's how this movie is effective. You're right. They're trying to establish some kind of like deep familial grief and a rift and mistrust. And as the mom of a teenage boy, I'm like, what are you doing? This is not smart. But I again admired it for its craft so much the whole way through. And it does, like the first one, give Chris Hemsworth the opportunity to emote. You know, we know he can be funny. We know he can be really tough and a very imposing screen presence. But here there is loss, there's remorse. And I think he steps up pretty well to that challenge. You know, it's easy to underestimate someone who looks like that and is that much of a mega global superstar.
No. He's zhuzhing the material as much as he can. And yeah, I agree with you. I think he's very underrated. Like, bitch at me all you want about the 2016 Ghostbusters, but he is exceptionally funny in that movie.
He's really good at comedy. Yeah. So here you guys to show a little bit of drama too. I was thinking about you the whole time in that scene on the glass roof deck of the gym. Were you losing your shit? Because I know you don't like heights.
I mean, it's no more than the average person, but yeah, that scene, that whole thing is so well done. And that's the kind of thing. It's like within that structure of that action scene, it is paced perfectly.
Yep.
We understand what's happening and who's where. And like all of that stuff is so great. But then when you get lost in these like 30-minute, it's one take things, I feel like movies need to pump the brakes on that one. Like, okay, we had 1917. We know you can do it, but it becomes a thing now where, for me anyway, and maybe other viewers have different takes on this, it takes me out of it because I start paying attention to the fact that I am watching a film and paying attention to all the craft involved in doing this thing. And it just becomes like the director sort of showboating, and it's removing me from losing myself in the narrative. Like, I love the fact that when Robert Altman does it at the beginning of The Player, not only do they begin with a clapper to remind you that you're watching one scene, but the entire peppered throughout that sequence are people talking about famous one take scenes in movies, you know? So it's like, I don't know. When I see this in a movie, I'm like, it makes me sort of shift back and be like, oh, I can't just immerse myself now. I have to be like, oh, when's it going to cut? What are they doing? Oh, I wonder where the seam is. How do they? Oh, that.
I do that
and
too.
That's a different headspace than what's going to happen. I'm so invested in these characters and in this story, you know?
Yeah, I look for the seams too. If you see someone's back or if there's like fire or something, like, okay, they probably cut there.
Exactly.
But I'm still really impressed at the crap that it takes to create the long chunks. And then,
no question.
Yeah. And the scenery is great. You know, they're in what? They're in Austria. They're in
Georgia.
But they were in Bangladesh at the beginning of it.
Right.
At the beginning of
the last movie
end.
ended.
So, you know, it does all the globe-trotting stuff, and, you know, he kills countless people. And at some point, his fists are on fire. He's still hitting people. Like, I guess you got to just go with how insane it is.
Glass Hospital at the beginning, I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Just the whole spiral staircase and everything.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff with like stairs and with glass. And anyway, as far as the Netflix movies, these big made for Netflix movies, especially the ones involving the Russos.
Yes.
This is way less obnoxiously glib than a lot of these big A-list star made for Netflix movies. This has some grit and some substance to it that I appreciated more than like your red notices.
Exactly. And it's way better than Cherry, which was trying to be a lot of things and succeeding in none of them. I want to give a shout out to Golshifteh Farahani because to me, she's always, you know, from Jim Jarmusch's Patterson. And so like in a movie like this where she's just like shooting everybody and kicking faces, it's like, oh yeah, you can do that too. That's so cool.
Yeah, no, she's very good in this. Okay, so what's your number then?
I'm going to say a 6.5. I gave a 6 to the first one, and I have more respect for the craft on display here, but I just like, you know, if you're gonna deprive me of like really sort of established characters, you better really fucking dazzle me with the action. Like, I'll still give a 10 to the Raid Redemption, which has like 4 pages of dialogue in it, but the action is just like next level. And here it's just really good.
Okay.
How
I'm
about
going to say a 7.3. I think
Okay.
the craft alone, like it does what it sets out to do for people who love this kind of action movie. So
Yeah.
it's on Netflix. It's the #1 movie on Netflix, baby. Go check it out.
Weirdly, I think this movie would benefit from being seen on the big screen. Not that we
I agree.
get to, you know.
I agree.